So Kyle, talk to me about the organization, the necessary aspect of the organization for Northeast Ohio, how it was created and what it means today as of old.
So we are the Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District. We provide regional sanitary or wastewater management and stormwater management to the city of Cleveland and then 62 other communities across 363 square miles of the Lake Erie watershed. So we are a large regional entity. We have two utilities, one treating wastewater, the other managing stormwater, and we provide that over a huge section of the Lake Erie watershed to make sure that over 1 million people have their wastewater treated, their stormwater managed, so it can go back into Lake Erie, and then the city of Cleveland's water department takes it out and we all drink it again.
Talk to me about the stormwater, the wastewater aspect of NEORSD. How is that broken down in terms of what's allocated here, what's allocated there, and what that process looks like for the layperson?
Yeah. So we have about 790 employees across the sewer district, and folks work in various departments. So we have our operation and maintenance department where we operate our 3 wastewater treatment plants. So those are the folks that are our wastewater plant operators, our maintenance folks, and they are working in the wastewater plants, doing that very detailed process of cleaning the water as it comes in and making sure that it's discharged back into the Cuyahoga River and Lake Erie. We also have a whole crew of folks that does our sewer system maintenance. So they are out in the sewer collection system, making sure that the large interceptor sewers, everything that's picking up the wastewater from the local sewers can get to our plants and things keep moving freely. Right? The key thing with wastewater management is you want to make sure that sanitary sewage does not come into contact with the environment and that it gets into the wastewater treatment plants and it's treated. So we have a whole group of employees that focuses on the wastewater side. Then we have another group of employees that operates our regional stormwater management program, which looks at flooding, erosion, and water quality issues across our whole service area. And then we also have a group of folks that supports both of those functions. So we have legal, finance, human resources. We have a very highly respected and certified lab. And we have technical services groups and IT. So it's a whole range of people that it takes to keep this large utility running.
Speaking of water quality, obviously Northeast Ohio is no strangers to that, from the fire that people normally talk about with the Cuyahoga River back in the 60s. But also to what we're doing today to better monitor our water quality. Obviously, environmental issues, lots of storms can cause impairments to the water quality. Talk to me a bit about that and what you guys see on a day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month basis and how you're helping to mitigate that.
Yeah, so it's really interesting. So you're looking both at water quality, so what's in the water from a biological standpoint in terms of how are the fish and bugs doing, and then also what's in the water from a chemical standpoint. And Ohio EPA is very good in terms of having standards that we have to meet. We have permit requirements that we have to meet. You know, under the Clean Water Act, any discharge to a lake or a river has to be governed by a permit. And we have to meet those permit criteria. And they're very specific in terms of what you're allowed to discharge, how you have to treat things, and how you have to monitor that. So our labs monitor that, test the water on a regular basis, and we're very clear in terms of the effluent. Effluent is what comes out of our system. But it's also interesting on the quantity side, and this is, what we're seeing with climate change: wetter, warmer, wilder weather. So it's raining more often, these rainstorms are more intense, and you see, more flooding. People have street flooding, you have flooding of basements and homes and things like this. So we're also, with our stormwater program, really focused on dealing with these quantity issues, and that's why we're focused on restoring floodplains, restoring streams, protecting wetlands, building green infrastructure, so that there's places in the landscape where water can slow down, soak in, and then slowly return to rivers and streams.
Can you speak to me about some of the issues that you're seeing in terms of a growing population or a more tenured population, some of the things that you may have, or maybe some of the scientists have seen populate a bit more in terms of causing issues to our water quality, maybe some chemicals that people, or household products that people are using?
Yeah, so there's this whole term in our business called emerging contaminants. right? And so I always think about the environmental movement as like peeling the onion, right? So in the 70s, when 1969 was the last Cuyahoga River, we had books like Silent Spring, and really the birth of the environmental movement in the 1970s. And at that time, we were talking kind of about these gross impositions, right? Like industry that was discharging straight pipe to the Cuyahoga River. The Cuyahoga River actually caught fire because there was a sheen of oil and debris on top of it. And these were kind of these big macro issues. And we've taken care of those largely through the great work of the sewer district and all the elected officials and the residents of Cuyahoga County and Northeast Ohio. And now we continue to peel that onion. So we've had issues with mercury, obviously atmospheric deposition of mercury. That was a big issue, which we deal with that through our pre-treatment program and through our other work. Today, the big conversation, obviously there's a conversation about lead. That's very much a drinking water conversation, not so much a wastewater conversation. The big emerging contaminant these days is a class of chemicals referred to as PFAS, which I'm sure people have heard of. Trevor Noah did a whole thing on this, and once it's on the Daily Show, I think we know it's kind of in regular conversation. And this really continues this conversation about risk and cost, and so that's this PFAS. These are they're sometimes referred to as forever chemicals. And so that's the conversation that a lot of folks in our industry are having. And I think it's always interesting because we all as a society have benefited from these chemicals, right? These are in firefighting foam. They're what make Teflon and things that make your jacket rain repellent and those kind of things. So the PFAS is the emerging contaminant of the day.
You know, Kyle, I've often had this conversation with my family and my friends too, especially when it comes to EVs. And a lot of the infrastructure that we have today that we take for granted have much longer effects on our environment than when they began. They didn't really take into account of like, okay, this is going to be an emerging industry to keep the U.S. moving forward faster, farther.
Yeah.
But it's also going to hinder us in the long term too. So for our residents here in Northeast Ohio, when they start taking account of their day-to-day lives, their community, their street, their block, what can they now start doing in terms of helping our water quality, helping the industry, helping the district, helping all of us here across Northeast Ohio?
I think the best thing to do, and in some ways kind of the funnest thing to do, is to walk around your property. So let's say that you live in like a regular suburban house. So you have a house, you have a front yard, you have a backyard. So walk around your property on the outside and say, where does the water go from my property? Obviously your sanitary sewage, so anything that's coming from your toilets, your drains, your washing machine, your shower, that is connected to the sanitary sewer in the street. It flows to a local sewer and it comes to us if you're a customer of the district, and we treat it and discharge it back to Lake Erie. So on the wastewater side, on the sanitary side, you want to have a closed system and you want to have centralized treatment. Centralized treatment means a wastewater treatment plant where we treat it to the highest standard and discharge it. But on the stormwater side, look at your gutters. Are they hard piped down into the ground? That means that stormwater is leaving your roof and going right into the stormwater system. It's not having any opportunity to slow down and soak in. Those are the ideas that you want to think about with stormwater. How on my property can I capture my own runoff and give it time to soak into my ground, to be captured in a rain barrel or a cistern or a rain garden? And personally, I think this is just showing my kind of stormwater geek side. I think this is really cool. Like, how am I lessening my impact on the system? Because I think we all have to keep in mind how lucky we are in Northeast Ohio, because we have an abundant supply of clean, fresh water in Lake Erie. And it is amazing. And it takes continuous maintenance to maintain that quality of water. So look around your property. How can I disconnect my downspouts, following obviously city codes, and have those run into a rain garden or a rain barrel?
What is a rain garden?
So a rain garden is any place that's capturing some kind of impervious surface. So it can be your gutter, the flow comes from your gutter and runs into a depressed area in your front yard or backyard. So generally a rain garden is like a hollowed out area that has plants in it that can have their feet wet when it's raining and can also handle being a little bit dry when it's not raining. Because the other idea that folks need to do is also ask yourself, what kind of plant species do I have in my front yard? What am I buying? What am I planting? Are they native? Making sure that they're not invasive. And you can have those conversations with folks like Cuyahoga Soil and Water Conservation District, the great folks at Holden Gardens. They have great information on what people can do, because it's really coming to this idea that we're all responsible for our little piece and making sure that we're planting things that are meant for Ohio, can grow well in Ohio, and have success. So a rain garden is a depressed area that captures a little bit of runoff.
What is the best time if you want to start a rain garden? What time of year is the best time to start a rain garden of the year? And also too, what species of plants would you say are more ideal for a rain garden?
Yeah, now I will just say that people that know me are hearing you ask me that question and they're thinking, oh, no, she's not gonna be able to answer that question. So I will just tell you, I am very much a promoter of gardening and gardens and plants, but I am not actually the person in the Dreyfuss-Wells family that does those things. So I will just say that there are great resources out there. So we have a whole, on our website, NEORSD.org, we have a whole booklet that folks can download on how to get your own stormwater credit. And you don't even have to want to get a credit on your stormwater fee, but it tells you how to build a rain garden. It tells you how to get a rain barrel, which you can get from Cuyahoga Soil and Water and the other soil and water conservation districts. There's one in each county. And so that's a long way of saying that there are people that know the answer to that question. They're incredibly great to work with. There's also watershed groups. We have West Creek Conservancy, Chagrin River Watershed Partners, that are all Dome Brook Partners, that are all set up to help individual homeowners with these kind of conversations.
Before we talk more about the district and the latest and greatest that you guys are doing here, I'm a person that lives in an apartment.
Yeah.
I live in a building. I do not obviously have a rain garden or ability to have a rain garden at my building. Is there something that you could speak to tenants of a building or an apartment complex, something that they can also be doing to help our water quality and even also help the district?
Yeah. So I'll say a couple things. First of all, by living in a dense urban space, you're already helping water quality, right? Because think about, you don't have that much impervious surface. So you're living in kind of a stacked space. So already that density of urban living has inherently sort of less runoff. You're kind of taking up less impervious surface devoted to you specifically. So that's just an interesting kind of urban planning idea. I think the other point is obviously making sure that you're using as little water as possible, right? So just monitor how long do you keep the faucet running when you're brushing your teeth? Do you only do laundry when the washing machine is full? Those kind of things. So how can I use as little water as possible? And remember, anytime you're using water, you're also generally using electricity or energy, which has a climate component to it. So that nexus between climate change and the energy used to either treat water or clean water is something to think about. So tread as lightly as possible, use as little as possible. Also think about the cleaning supplies that you're using, because remember, all that stuff is ultimately going down the drain. So if you can just use soap and water, those opportunities where you can just use soap and water is great. We have a Healthy Home book on our website, a great place to get like really great tips on easy things that you can do to minimize solvents and other cleaning supplies. I think folks sort of just use these things by rote and don't really think about the impacts. But anytime you're going beyond soap and water, consider the impact that you're having. The other point that I would make about the apartment living is potentially you, as tenants or as if you're in a condo association, think about ways you could potentially compost. We have great services like Rust Belt Riders, which do sort of group composting. We do it here at the district. If you work at the district, you can, if you don't eat your whole lunch, which I don't really know who does that, I pretty much finish my lunch 100%, you can compost your food waste, and Rust Belt Riders will pick that up and compost it for you.
The latest and greatest going on with the district. Talk to us about that. If there's anything you want to highlight in terms of events coming up, as well as some of the projects you spoke about in Parma.
Yeah, so we have our Utility Assistance Resource Fairs, which we started in 2022, hugely successful. We have a very strong commitment at the district in terms of making sure that those customers of ours that qualify for our cost-saving programs, folks who qualify can get up to a 40% reduction in their sewer bill. They can also get savings on their stormwater bill. And we realized that we have to make sure that we're reducing the barriers to signing up for those programs. That is our responsibility, to make sure that people can sign up easily for programs that they are eligible for. So that means having our materials in multiple languages. It means actually having these utility assistance resource fairs where folks sign up for an appointment because they are our customers, and they come through a very transparent and easy and clear to understand process, so they're not waiting in line for long periods of time, and they come out the other end of our utility assistance resource fairs actually signed up. And we partnered with water, electricity, folks that can help with rent. So these fairs are terrific. The next one is coming up, I believe it's July 29th. You can see that on our website at Gunning Recreation Center. So those are huge, and we're very proud of our staff and our partners for the amount of work and for getting that ease of sign up for our customers. So utility assistance resource fairs. On the wastewater side, our Westerly tunnel dewatering pump station is about to go online. Folks can see that as they come to Edgewater Beach. That's a big pump station that will de-water or empty some of our big CSO tunnels. So that's a huge step in terms of keeping combined sewer overflow out of Lake Erie. And then finally, on the stormwater side, we continue to make really good progress on our Dome Brook restoration at Horseshoe Lake Park, and then we are starting the rehabilitation design process for Lower Lake. So a lot of work. And then finally, I know I said finally already. Finally, if folks are familiar with Parma, they're seeing a huge amount of work in Parma. A lot of stormwater projects going on, which is the culmination of a lot of planning on the part of Parma, the sewer district, putting together funding and bringing those projects to reality.
It's amazing. If you can speak about this is kind of like off the cuff too. Are you guys doing anything? I know Mayor Bibb came in with a high agenda on the environment and thing. Is there anything going on that you would want to speak to about that? Any sort of partnerships or something that you guys are talking to him and his administration about?
Absolutely. I mean, we've been in close coordination with Mayor Bibb and his administration. Obviously, we work very closely with the City of Cleveland Water Department and those folks. They're partners with us on the Utility Assistance Resource Fairs. Our sustainability folks work very closely together. So, continuing that path from the Jackson administration to the Bibb administration, very close partnership with the City of Cleveland.